So the first myth is product management is a technical role. Now, it is not surprising because you see a lot of job descriptions, a lot of people, your friends, your peers, your colleagues, or anyone who probably came from engineering background, right? A lot of people, as we saw in the chart before, move from engineering into product management. And hence there is this assumption that is made that I need to be technical. I need to have an engineering background. Well, that is not really true. It is true in certain cases. For example, it is true if your product uses very interesting, compelling, and advanced technologies, right? Now, the reason why it is important there is because you will be working with the people who are actually using technology to solve the problem, right? To build the product. And hence, it is important for you to have that meaningful conversation with that team. If you completely are novice in technology, then one of the important things for product managers is to gain credibility, gain the respect of the team members, right? So you might miss on that. So you should, if you are working on technology products, it is important that you really understand technology. You don't have to be a programmer, you don't have to come from an engineering background, but it's really important that you try and understand the technology and see how best you can actually apply that, and let the experts build the product. You are not the expert, the engineering team is the expert. Let them build the product, but you are going to work with them and have the conversations around prioritization, business impact, customer delight, all of those things, right? So this is a super important thing. Now, that's a very important mindset. The best way to remember that is through this metaphor, if you will. I'm sure many of you have seen this picture either on TV or somewhere. You see these Western orchestras where a bunch of violinists are playing violin, a bunch of cellists are playing cello, a bunch of pianists are playing piano, and this is one guy with this black suit and a stick in his hand and waving the hands up and down, right? Now, my friends, that is the product manager. Now, the analogy is this person actually knows how to play violin. This person knows how to play the piano or the bass or anything, but is not an expert in any of those. The experts are the people who are playing this. So this person can direct the entire teams, knows when to up level the piano and down level the violin and vice versa, and create a harmonious orchestra, right? So the role of this person as a product manager is a master orchestrator of the productizing process, right? There is a whole process in taking an idea, taking a problem, taking a challenge in the market and coming back, and how do you build a solution or product? How do you test it? How do you get the feedback? And how do you take this to the market, communicate the value to the market, and get customers, right? So of course, in that context, the product manager works with various functional teams, right? And we'll get to that in a minute. But takeaway, this is a mental model for you to remember, the orchestrator of the productizing process. Now, if you ask me, what are the specific skills, functional skills from a product management perspective, right? Now, this particular role usually requires three types of skills. One, domain skills, right? If you are in some industry domain, it could be security, it could be e-commerce, it could be healthcare, it could be financial services, insurance, whatever it is. Having a good understanding, experience, and expertise in that domain will come in super handy. But that alone is not enough. The second group of skills or category of skills, if you will, is a functional skills, right? And we'll talk about what those functional skills are. And the third one is some leadership skills that are very, very critical for each one of you to get into that role. So what are the functional skills, right? Typically, when we talk about a product or a solution that you're going to take it to market, you're going to build, there are three things: desirability, feasibility, and viability. Desirability focuses pretty much on who is the group of people who wants to solve this problem? Who is the one who are going to desiring a solution, either from you or from anybody else in the market? So you need to find the need, find the pain points or challenges, and come back and quantify that market opportunity and say, okay, we have done this analysis. Here are the group of people we should first prioritize and target, and create something, put it in their hands, test it, and come back, validate this, and then do multiple prototypes, or what we call in product language as minimum viable products, right? So that's desirability. Now, feasibility is all about, can we do it, right? If desirability is, should we even solve this problem with our product and solution? Feasibility is all about, can we do it? Do we have the ability? Do we have the resources? Now, do we have the requirements hashed out? Do we have the designs ready? Have we prioritized things? Have we planned things, and have we started executing it, right? Now, that execution is most of you are familiar in different development models like Agile, Kanban, and less and less on waterfall, but it's still there, right? And then finally, it is a very important responsibility of a product manager to actually make sure that whatever you're building is financially sustainable. Even if you're not making money in the market, even if you're not selling it for hard cash or money, you need to make sure that this thing is sustainable, otherwise you will shut down. So what are the ways that you will basically fund this initiative, right? Fund this product. Sometimes it is direct monetization, sometimes it is indirect. Now, of course, for you to take this to market, to get customers, you're going to work with product marketing and sales teams and partnerships to actually make sure that you put this out in the market, and those people are ready to sell that product in the market, right? So there are a whole bunch of functional skills for product management. The intersection of all these things is this very strategic role. That is why this is a strategic role. This is not a tactical role like many other functional roles. Okay, so myth number 2, product managers just write requirements. Now, again, this is not entirely wrong. That's probably because many people who interact with product managers in their context always see them only writing user stories, requirements, working with design to come up with some markups if it is a digital product, right? All of those things. But really, a product management, the way to think about the responsibilities of product management and the roles and the titles that you have. I'm sure you are familiar with lots of titles in the industry today, right? In India, we have very creative titles for product managers as well. Different companies are coming up with very innovative titles. So I won't usually talk about titles. I usually focus on role and responsibilities. And again, there are many ways to do it, but I wanted to bring in a slightly different way of understanding it. Initially proposed by one of my friend, Jason Shen, who's a product leader. And the way that to look at this is, you have an x-axis and you have a y-axis. The x-axis talks about, on the left side, tree, right? A tree and a forest. A tree essentially is, you are zooming in, you are detail focused, detail oriented, and diligent around it. A forest is something, a big picture view, right? So you look at from afar, there are so many trees around it, you get a full view of what that place is like and what might contain inside that. On the y-axis, on the top, you see it's a logical thinking mind, logical thinking brain, decision making, right? Very specific, data driven, data informed, metrics driven, all of that part of it. And the bottom of it is heart. This is where you see a lot of empathy, a lot of understanding of customer emotions and all of that, right? So if you have a grid like this, a quadrant like this, there are 4 different personas, if you will, of a product managers, right? I call them analyst, organizer, explorer, and advocate. Now, analyst is somebody who is very detail oriented and looking for data to make informed decisions. Often they are working very closely with the development team, with the customer support team, identifying the problems, making sure that they are fixed, testing them, focusing on the details part of it, right? And then you have the organizer persona, which is working with lots of team members. Now you need to understand where each of the team member is coming from. There could be design, there could be marketing, there could be development and all of that, and bringing that empathy into it, but still very focused on that particular feature or that particular product or release, right? Now you start looking at the other side, which is big picture, but bringing in a lot more emotions and customer understanding and customer empathy. These are the people who actually are very strong listeners, fantastic communicators. These are the people who will motivate the team members, organization leaders, right? These are typical leaders that you see, product leaders in large organizations. And then finally, explorer. Explorer is often outbound focused. They are looking at market trends. How do we take our product and understand what is happening in the market, position our product appropriately so that it resonates, the message and the value resonates within the market. And of course, vice versa, bringing back those trends that you see, technology trends, market trends, consumer behavior trends, and coming back and saying, hey, This is what is going to happen, we believe, in the next 2 years. So how do we plan our roadmap? What is our strategy going to be, right? Those kind of conversations. Now, if you put titles to this particular personas, right, you will often see something like this. A product owner and product manager are focused primarily on the tactical decision making on specific things, very organized, but data informed, data driven decision making, logical thinking. Whereas as you move in your career to next levels, more of strategic thinking needs to come in, right? A lot more of looking ahead 1 year, 2 year, 3 years ahead, big picture, and bringing back. And of course, you have got to be an awesome storyteller, person who motivates the team members and all of that, right? So that's a way to think about. Again, I didn't want the traditional approach of here are the job responsibilities of a product owner or a product manager. That you can get anywhere, right? Most of the places you can find that information. Okay, so now if you ask me, what do I need from a skill set perspective, right? So think of this as a mindset, the approach that you want to do, take, and here are the skill sets. Now, there are literally 25 competencies here for effective product managers at all the roles, right? All the way up to chief product officer. But then, if you look at the color shading here, the blue ones are what many companies call as inbound product management, right? This is where a lot of PM roles in India are today. Again, if you look at, there is a light blue, section that's called product planning. This is where a lot of product owners spend their time writing, personas, requirements, user experience design, and roadmaps and prioritization and all of that. Whereas the dark blue shades typically are product managers, right? Now, the red ones, of course, some companies call it as outbound product management, or some companies call it as product marketing, right? So if you come from a product marketing background, it is a nice indirect way to get into product management if that's what interests you, right? It's a fantastic role, and product marketing managers are well suited to get into it because they can bring in that outside perspective, that market perspective easily, much more easily than people who move from engineering background, right? So this is what I call as a competency wheel, right? So there are 25. Don't worry, you don't have to master all of these things right away, but depending on the stage that you are in, depending on the level you are in, some of these things become really, really important, right? So that's how you get into product management and product leadership roles. Myth number 3, product managers spend all their time with development teams, right? And this also comes out in a lot of in the product management survey that was conducted by Institute of Product Leadership across India. A lot of time, about 60% of the time, is spent with the development team. Now, that is unfortunate because a product management role is to work with cross-functional teams. Now, what are these cross-functional teams? I'm sure in your own teams, you will notice that if you're working on some project or a product, today you have what we call as Scrum teams, right? If you follow Agile methodology or even otherwise. Now, the composition of this team, if you look at it, usually you have developers, you have quality engineers, you have designers, you have marketeers, you have technical writers. Sometimes you have sales popping in and asking questions about, hey, when are we going to get this out? And your customers, your leadership team. So there are various functions that as a product manager that you will have to continuously interact with, not just the development team. Of course, development team is the one that is building that product or solution, but constantly you need to be negotiating, influencing other teams. And that is why this role is fascinating role, because other than the core skill sets that we talked about, one of the most important leadership skills that is required for this role is influencing without authority, right? Because nobody reports to you. And often in many companies, until you become a director of products, all the product managers mostly are individual contributors, right? So, but then you will have to influence everybody in this cross-functional team to bring them to a common perspective, to align them towards a common goal. And at every step of the day, you need to drive that to get that product out, right? So this is the challenging part of the role. This is also most exhilarating part of the role if you like such kind of thing, right? So you're working with all the other team members.